the four-time Congress MP, chairperson of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on External Affairs and a former UN Under-Secretary General. Dr. Shashi Tharoor joins me. Appreciate your joining us, Dr. Tharoor. You've come out broadly in support of the Modi government in its handling of Operation Sindoor. This has even led some observers to suggest Shashi Tharoor has become an apologist for the BJP and Prime Minister Modi. How do you respond broadly to the operation conducted by the Modi government and its response to Pakistan, and those who are criticizing you for being seen as an apologist?
Look, there's nothing to apologize for. As far as I'm concerned, I'm an Indian citizen first and foremost. And as a parliamentarian, as somebody who's involved in public life in this country, my first duty is to my nation, to my people, to the flag. Party and other interests are always there, but they will follow secondarily. When the nation is attacked, as happened in Pahalgam on the 22nd of April, and when the nation responds, as it did on the 7th of May and subsequently, I believe we all stand with our armed forces and with our government, which is exactly what my party announced in the morning. So I'm a bit puzzled by that kind of criticism. Having said that, Rajdeep, I think that indeed what was done extremely well. That is, if you understand, as many of us did, and I wrote articles immediately after the 22nd of April, analyzing what I believe had happened and what the motivations of the killers were, our response had to be calibrated and smart. In other words, it was impossible not to hit back, because not to hit back would have given a license for future terrorist attacks to take place with impunity. But in hitting back, we also had to be careful not to send the wrong signal, not to let our attack be taken as the opening salvo in a protracted war. Because it's not in our interest, Rajdeep, to go that route. Our country is focused on its growth and its development, the well-being and prosperity of our own people. And honestly, we don't need to be distracted by a long and unproductive conflict on our borders. So when a terrorist attack strikes, do not let it go unpunished. Send the killers a strong message, and to their handlers and backers in Pakistan, but do not at the same time undermine your own interests. And your own interests are your own growth and development and well-being and so on. So to my mind, that, as I wrote in one of my articles soon after the Pahalgam attack, hit hard, but hit smart. And I thought the government did that very well. It hit, as you know, 9 terrorist sites, which is a very important thing to do. It not only did that in a very effective way, it did so at night, where honestly there's very, very little likelihood of ordinary civilians wandering around. So you are minimizing any collateral damage. And the government went out of its way not to target in that first attack any military bases, any civilian infrastructure, any government installations. I thought the message was very clear. I'm sure that our government was then busy calling all the world capitals saying, see what we did. We have hit back on the terrorists, but we're not anxious to unleash a broader war.
But let me stop you for a moment. Since you mentioned our government spoke to world capitals, said, look, we've conducted what you're calling a smart operation, hit hard but hit smart. The truth of the matter is, you've got Donald Trump, the United States president, claiming credit for the ceasefire, virtually saying that he's ready to mediate on the Kashmir issue, and importantly, drawing an equivalence between India, the victim, and Pakistan, the perpetrator. So when it comes to the world, and you know the world well, India doesn't seem to have got the kind of unequivocal support that we should have, given the fact that we were the victim and Pakistan the perpetrator. How do you see what Donald Trump has done? Has that in some way reduced the effectiveness of Operation Sindoor?
Look, I'm afraid none of us in India can be accountable for Mr. Trump's somewhat erratic behavior. All I can say is I don't believe he was properly briefed. I don't believe he understood the purport of what he was saying, because in saying what he's saying, he made 4 major mistakes. First, the equivalence between the victim and the perpetrator, as I pointed out. Second, he talked about mediation. India has never accepted or welcomed mediation, and I'm 100% sure that we did not seek American mediation on this matter. Third, the seeming internationalization of the Kashmir dispute, which frankly is a win-win for the Pakistanis. They want to internationalize a dispute that has been off the global agenda for very many years now. Pakistan's previous attempts, when they were earlier a member of the Security Council, non-permanent member, to try and get Kashmir discussed, were rebuffed by the rest of the world. And for Mr. Trump to talk about it in this way was most unfortunate. And then finally, there is the rehyphenation in the American imagination and in Mr. Trump's own rather limited imagination of India and Pakistan, which I must regret very strongly, because we had successfully established in the eyes of the world and of every American president since President Clinton that you don't treat the two as equal or together. We've said to them, when you come to India, don't stop in Pakistan on the way there or on the way back. We have no objection to you having any relationship with Pakistan, but treat it independent of us. We don't want to be clubbed with them.
No, so should we be sending a stronger message to Donald Trump? You see, should we be sending, if you were the Minister of External Affairs, would you send a strong message to Donald Trump or ignore what Donald Trump says in the belief that Donald Trump is not someone who observes diplomatic niceties, so why respond to him?
Well, I think that Mr. Trump indeed doesn't respond, does not even respect the basics of international diplomacy and discourse. But I think it's important to brief the surround system around him. I'm sure that our people have spoken in these terms to the Secretary of State, who's also doubling for the moment as National Security Advisor, Marco Rubio. And when they confirm an Assistant Secretary of State for South Asian Affairs, who, by the way, is somebody who's of part Indian descent, a man called S. Paul Kapoor, who is a highly respected scholar and strategic studies analyst, and who knows India and Indian issues well and will understand what we're saying, I'm fairly confident that we'll be able to convey exactly why we were troubled by all of this. It's an ongoing process. I must admit, the specific Trump tweet was indeed a most unfortunate development and a set. But he kind of shoots from the hip, doesn't he? We are not the only victims of this kind of impulsive behavior on the part of the American president.
You know, so listening to you, I get a sense that you're giving Narendra Modi and his government 10 on 10 or 9.5 on 10 for both the way they conducted Operation Sindoor, handled the Pahalgam attack, and even handled the world diplomatically. There are others who are questioning, even in your own party, whether Mr. Modi has allowed Kashmir to get internationalized, whether to allow an American president to announce a ceasefire between India and Pakistan is setting a dangerous precedent. Am I to understand that you're giving 9.5 or 10 out of 10 to Prime Minister Modi, which is unusual, remember, for an opposition leader to do so?
Rajdeep, it's not my place to award marks to anybody, let alone my betters, let alone the head of our government. So I'm not awarding any marks for anybody. All I'm saying right now is I believe that the matters that were under our control, namely how to conduct this operation, including its naming it, its presentation of it, the information briefings, all that were very well done. If you ask me whether Mr. Trump announcing this ceasefire was a good idea, it was a terrible idea. But if you're implying that we could have controlled it, or that perhaps a chief minister from another, a prime minister from another party could have controlled Mr. Trump better, well, I'm very happy to wish you good luck in doing that, Rajdeep. I think this is a gentleman who escapes such easy control. And therefore, I don't know whether it's entirely appropriate to score political points off Mr. Trump's shoulders, because Mr. Trump is Mr. Trump. And I don't think anybody in any foreign country is able to control what he does and how he does it. All I can say is that India has to make it very clear to the world, to Mr. Trump, to the Pakistanis, and to the Indian public, whether we're going to do what Mr. Trump implies we're going to do. And I think it's already become very clear we're not. We're not going to give the Pakistanis the benefit of a negotiation that they have done nothing to earn. We're not going to give them the privilege of sitting across the table with them as a reward for their having killed 26 civilians in Pahalgam and a further 22 in Poonch and sent 59 to hospital as well. Their behavior has been egregious, to say the least, and we're not going to be talking lovey-dovey with the Pakistanis for a long time to come. And as far as the question of rehyphenation and internationalization and so on. Let somebody try and get us to talk to the Pakistanis, and we'll tell them exactly why we won't. I think we can't judge international affairs on the basis of one truth social post or one headline. We have to look at a pattern of behavior. We have to look at what follows next.
No,
I would say
the reason I asked you that was, Dr. Tharoor, you've seen the way your party has reacted. Your party officially has called for a special session of parliament. You're a member of parliament. They've called a special session of parliament. That's been reiterated, saying we need all the issues underlying this ceasefire to be put up before parliament. We need a full debate. You clearly are saying there is no need for a parliament special session. You seem to suggest that, look, these are...
I'm sorry, Rajdeep, where you got that from. I've supported the demand from the very beginning. The party has every right to make such a demand. And in fact, I pointed out that in 1962, when we were at war with China, we actually managed to have a debate in Parliament, a special session of Parliament, which the Prime Minister personally attended and responded to questions. And in those days, there was no anti-defection law. So some of the toughest questions came to him from his own party. And he was able to handle that. So I think a parliamentary session is entirely healthy. I've done my part as chairman of the External Affairs Committee in requesting the Foreign Secretary to come and give us a briefing, which he's going to do next Monday. That's the prerogative of the committee. And that's his duty, and he's accepted that duty. So that's part of the parliamentary accountability process that is so important in a parliamentary democracy like ours.
The reason I'm coming to these questions, there's a sense that even on foreign policy issues in recent past, we've had a politicization that didn't exist. Broadly, there used to be a political consensus on foreign policy issues, which has broken down in recent years. Do you believe that this is an opportunity to revive that broad consensus that exists? Or is our politics so polarized that it's impossible to have that? The BJP now is launching a Tiranga Yatra from today, going across the country, virtually almost claiming credit for what's happened. Now, do you believe that's a healthy trend? Do you believe that we should have a broad consensus rather than point scoring when it comes to foreign policy issues involving an enemy state?
Absolutely. And that's why I congratulate the Congress Party that on the very first day, it said that we stand with the government and with the armed forces. It's consistently articulated that message. And if you look at all the major wars we fought, 62, 65, 71, Kargil in 99, the nation has been united and the nation has put politics aside, even though there are legitimate questions that can be asked and which I believe are in the government's own interest to have answered. In spirit of knowing what went wrong, that should be done. But right now, while the crisis is abating, I think it's only fitting we all stand together. Now, I don't know about the Tiranga Yatra. Certainly, I don't know if it's being conducted.
Now, would you support, do you believe political parties should have these Tiranga Yatras, or do you believe that we should be very conscious of not using our armed forces to score political points, or is that inevitable?
No, I think honestly, if there is going to be a Tiranga Yatra, the ruling party or the government should invite all parties to participate in it, because the Tiranga belongs to all of us and not just to the ruling party.
That's an interesting observation you make there, Dr. Tharoor, all of which is leading me to the big question. You see, Dr. Tharoor, you find yourself in an interesting position. You're someone who's had a wide experience in diplomacy. You're chairperson of the Ministry of External Affairs Standing Committee in Parliament. And yet you're seen as someone who at the moment is uncomfortable in some form with your own party. So the moment you're seen to back the Modi government on any issue, instantly people are saying, there goes Shashi Tharoor again. He's slowly coming closer and closer to the Bharatiya Janata Party, particularly ahead of next year's Kerala elections.
My dear Rajdeep, we've been hearing this kind of talk for at least 11 years and arguably for 15. I'm weary of it. The fact is that I'm rather proud of the fact that I've had a very long paper trail. Anybody who reads me or listens to me, follows my articles and my speeches and my books, knows pretty much what I believe and what I stand for. And I think that I shouldn't have to constantly have to justify my point of view. I'm socially liberal. I am politically nationalist. I am strongly in favor of unity when it comes to issues of national security. I believe passionately in development, growth, and the prosperity of our country. And I believe in social justice. And here's a mixture of ideas which I've been consistently holding to since I was a teenager in college. For God's sake, let me be myself. I'm not honestly at this
But
point diverting from anything I have held
But
or
how do
or
you
valued
balance
as
how do you
principle. Let's
balance
not
your
reduce
how do
everything
you
to the
balance
petty.
your role, Dr. Tharoor, as an opposition leader with supporting the government's actions during the national security crisis? Or do you believe that there is no, it's not a balancing act? As you said at the very outset, you believe that there are certain issues where the flag comes first. Am I right?
Yeah, and my party said the same thing. I mean, the irony is, I am not at odds with my party in saying that at a moment of national crisis like this, we stand with the government and the armed forces, we rally behind the flag.
Right.
I think every party is doing that. I'm not even aware of, I mean, you look at someone who's as trenchant a critic of the BJP as Mr. Asaduddin Owaisi, where has he stood on these issues? Are you accusing him of joining the BJP tomorrow too?
And therefore, in conclusion, if I were to ask you if there's any one piece of advice that you would like to give Prime Minister Modi today, what would it be?
I think take the nation along with you. This has been a national crisis. We've all stood with you. And I think if indeed you would like us all to hold the Tiranga aloft, let's do it together, collectively, and not as a party initiative. That would be my response. But having said that, I must admit I don't know the details of this. I believe
Right.
it's been announced today. I don't know if it's been announced only as a party initiative, but certainly the Tiranga belongs to all parties, to all Indians, and let us all hold it up with pride. I wear it with pride right here on my jacket. And to my mind, it's where it belongs, is right near our hearts.
There was another question I just wanted to ask before I leave you. You've also strongly come out in defense of Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri, who was subject to rather toxic online trolling. Do you believe that is something that is also deeply troubling, that these internet armies are using what are national security crisis to divide people between so-called nationalists and anti-nationals?
I think it's absolutely disgraceful. To begin with, what entitled them to issue these certificates, no one knows. Who are they? What kind of service have they done to our country? What entitles them to judge the service of people who have actually worked for our country all their lives? I don't know who they are, other than the fact that they have access to the internet and they can write offensive language. To my mind, this is cheap, third-rate behavior. And as far as I'm concerned, Vikram deserves better. He's been an outstanding public servant for a very long time. He's been a very good foreign secretary. I can speak as chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee in saying my colleagues are all very impressed with the quality, candor, and accuracy of the briefings he's been giving us on all sorts of issues over the year that we have been in this committee. And I think that during these briefings, he conducted himself with tremendous grace, dignity, and professionalism. He does not deserve the slightest abuse, least of all should he, as a father, have to see his daughter being abused and so on. It's absolutely shocking. And I stand with him, so does the entire political class. And I know that on Monday, when we meet him for a briefing, we're all going to, in the committee, express our appreciation to him. This kind of vile trolling really is India at its worst. And I hope that those who've done this are thoroughly ashamed of themselves and are made to feel thoroughly ashamed by the rest of the nation.
Shashi Tharoor, for speaking so plainly on a variety of issues, appreciate you joining me here on the news today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rajdeep. Take care.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe. If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.